So apparently my parents talk about a lot of heavy stuff on their podcast. Listen at your own discretion. Like, comment, subscribe, and share or whatever. Anyways, welcome to Sobriety.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Sober as Fuck. I'm Jess, this is Ryan. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We have a great guest today.
Yes, we do.
Tell us a little bit about him.
So our guest today is Coaster. He is, almost 11 years sober, which is crazy. This guy reminds me of me. He's like busy all the time. He's a hip hop artist, which is badass. I just started acting, which is badass.
He has 2 other jobs on top of that.
2 other jobs, a motivational speaker. This dude stays busy, and I love it. And I cannot wait for everybody to hear his story.
He's the epitome of sober as fuck.
Yes, he is. He's the man. Let's welcome to the show our good friend, Coaster.
Hey, you guys. How you doing?
What's up, brother? How are you?
Good, good. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
I love the ambiance. I love how like your mic changes colors and you have like the purple in the background.
This is badass.
Thank you.
I love it.
I finally have like a little home studio at home now, so it's nice. It's nice to have.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Coaster, let's dive right in, brother. So give me a little background story here on your change of relationship with alcohol.
And your 500 jobs.
Yeah.
And all the shit you do.
And now I'm a dad, so I mean that's just
I forgot to say
that's
that.
like the hardest one out of all of them.
I'm busy. Let's see. You know, my relationship with alcohol, I mean, started when I was younger. I'm from Washington State. I'm from a small town called Selah, and just smack dab in the middle of Washington. So of course, you know, just alcohol and drinking in high school and stuff obviously is just a culture, and I just you know, out of boredom or whatever else, you know, and I started drinking when I was 11 actually, and so I started young. My grandpa, you know, rest in peace, but he had a wine cellar. He actually made all of his own wine that he was, you know, kind of famous in the family for. Not too hard to get into. So I mean, it started early for me. So it was very normalized, and I feel like especially with, you know, when I was growing up at that time of being like a teenager or whatever, I feel like all those real badass, like, you know, high school and college movies, that's when like that was really big and really coming out at the time, you know, as far as comedies and stuff. So it was very normalized, and especially just, you know, being where I'm from. And let's say, I think I was 21. I actually got in a really bad drinking and driving accident, and it's something I shouldn't have walked away from. You could see my 69 Chevy pickup truck in a couple of my music videos, but that was a gift from my dad, and I totaled it, you know, completely. I hit a tree when I was blacked out drunk, and it changed me a little bit. It didn't change me enough to stop drinking. I still drank for another year after that, and I went back to jail a couple more times, you know, for drinking, being on probation, and it finally boiled down to, you know, what was more important to me in life. You know, was it my music, or, you know, am I going to continue drinking? And, you know, because I released one of my first official like albums called Contagious on my 21st birthday. So, you know, everything's been kind of intertwined, and that's where I started to really get recognition here locally. And of course I was drinking and partying all the time, and celebrating until, you know, you start looking around and just like, what are we still celebrating? You know what I mean? Why am I not making music? And it just ultimately got in the way for me. And that was just kind of, you know, where it went. And it's, you know, I had to do the court appointed stuff, and finally, you know, I got court ordered a year of outpatient. And so that's where it came down to like, okay, how about I just stop drinking for a year and let's see if I can do it. You know, let's just take this court thing serious. I obviously don't want to go back to jail. And so after a year, I just didn't stop, you know what I mean? And I go and do motivational speaking at schools and sobriety events. And in some ways I do feel guilty. At first I did. I felt really guilty at first because I'm not one of those people that, you know, works a 12-step program. I don't go to AA meetings. It just wasn't something that was for me. And it took a while for me to realize that everybody You know, everybody copes differently, everybody recovers differently, and I feel like it's so drilled in your head, especially when you're going to outpatient and all that. It's like, you know, AA meetings is the only reason you stay sober, and it makes you think that there's only one way to do something, and so I felt guilty about that at first, especially when I was, you know, talking to kids and talking to, you know, other people working the 12 steps, you know, having trouble staying sober, and for me, stuff like this, and, you know, traveling and doing all the shows I do and talking to people is really what, you know, keeps me in check. And obviously just building community, you know, community like this, you know, big shout out to Sober as Fuck podcast, and shout out to everybody that, you know, kind of puts that at the forefront of, you know, everybody does it differently.
Yeah, you're right. There is no one size fits all. And that was kind of the, you know, reason behind us doing the podcast, was really getting that message out there. You know, I tried AA a couple times and it just wasn't for me, but it helps out a lot of people, and it has helped out a lot of people, a lot of my friends. It just, for me, it wasn't a good fit. So, you know, I used Reframe, which is just an app. You know, it's like a drink counter, and they have meetings and things like that. And it's the neuroscience behind it. But just like you, at the end of the day, it was all about community and reaching out to other people, and knowing that I'm not the only one that feels the way I do or has these issues, cravings, you know, whatever it is, and getting together with those people that understand. I'm sure you felt the same way, you know, forming that community to really help you stay the track that you wanted to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think too, like, it's so cliche, and I'm going to say oversaid, but it's so true. No one is alone, right? Yeah. And even though you're in the thick of recovery and you've been sober, and when I say you, I mean like the royal you, like anyone out there, you still sort of fall victim, and that little voice pops up like, am I really I think I'm the only one who thinks this fucked up shit, right? Like, I think it's just me. Because when we started the podcast, it was originally going to just be Ryan, and I was just going to do all this stuff like behind the scenes. And then it was kind of stale, to be honest, because how long can you just talk about your own sobriety? And so I came on and I grappled with that. I was like, well, but I'm sober, but I didn't quit drinking because I had a rock bottom. It was a culmination of things, and I moderated just fine. And I thought, well, this isn't the space for me. I don't know. Do I belong here? And then once I started saying that, all of these other usual, like mostly women and mostly moms are like, same. Like, I didn't have a rock bottom. I just realized, like, what am I doing?
It's not serving you anymore.
Mommy does not need wine at 7 p.m. or it's just not serving you. And so that was a big reality check for me. Like, no matter what it is that you're thinking or going through, no matter how small or big, like, there are literally probably millions of other people. And community is where you realize, like, you are not crazy.
Yeah,
you are not crazy, I promise. So you said that you got into a really bad accident and you went to jail a few times. What was it? Did you have a moment? Was it like a series of moments? Like, what was it that made you go, I'm done with this. Like, I'm just not going to do this anymore.
See, I don't really know if I had one of those moments. I mean, I've been through a lot in life, so I've had a lot just kind of hit me in the face, and obviously the accident was one of them. You know, I was blacked out drunk, and then all of a sudden I woke up in the hospital, handcuffed to a hospital bed, and I thought to myself, oh shit, like, I don't remember what happened, but I knew exactly what happened.
That sounds like an incident that Ryan had.
Yeah. And no, you're good. And like right away, I was just like, somebody needs to contact my dad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it, you know, because my accident happened at like 4 something a.m. in the morning. I was partying with friends, and, you know, I blacked out at the party. I apparently tried to fight one of my friends, which is totally out of character for me. But, you know, I guess it all boiled down to they didn't want me to drive, and that's why I was trying to fight him. Whatever, you know, here. Yeah. But that was definitely one, you know, just the reality of that, and being like, dude, my dad's gonna be so pissed at me, and you know, and just being so hard on myself, you know, like how it's one of those things where you just, you know, especially it goes hand in hand with like just my passion for music, and I just have an expectation of myself, and like what is supposed to happen, but sometimes God has different plans, and sometimes you just wake up and you're just like, this was not supposed to be the plan. You know what I mean? And especially being that young, I feel like, you know, you think you're invincible, you think you kind of know the world, and it wasn't my plan. And I woke up and had to be like, okay, well, I kind of have to hit the drawing board. But it wasn't the alcohol side of things, you know. It wasn't until later on where it was just like, you know, I don't have a problem or whatever. I don't know if I'm going to stop drinking or not. And honestly, it wasn't really a plan to stay sober this long. It just like kind of happened. But definitely like life moments like that is what has kind of, you know, shaped, you know, my journey as far as an artist and just as a person in general.
Yeah. And speaking of you, you know, being, you know, in the hip hop world, and you're about to go on tour again, I think you told me. So,
Yep.
you know, as you're touring and stuff like that, I mean, you know, especially when you started out, you obviously knew this wasn't serving you. You know, what were you doing? What kind of tools were you using? You know, part of the community, what were you doing to really stay clean and sober the whole time?
Man, I mean, not a lot. I mean, that it was just one of those, like, I just had to, it was one of those things where like I've always been passionate about music, and I always knew I was going to have to sacrifice stuff for my dreams, for my passion. You know, from day one, like I knew, obviously I'm sacrificing sleep. I'm going to sacrifice sleep. I'm going to sacrifice relationships with my family. You know, I'm going to sacrifice relationships with, you know, I got 3 little nephews, and like, it sucks, but there's like birthday parties and stuff that I've missed that I can't ever get back. But I knew, you know, going into it, and I feel like alcohol was just one of those things where like, that's just another sacrifice for, you know, the greater good, and to, you know, keep on rolling. And I feel like it took a while till I actually started talking about it on stage. And that's when, like, when I started actually talking about it on stage, like, oh, hey, you know, and now that's how I open up every show. I'm like, hey, I'm Coaster. I've been sober for this long. And then when I started getting that reaction from people, and not just like sober people, but just like people in the audience, you know what I mean? They applaud stuff like that. And then that's when I started meeting people after my performances, after shows, that are like, hey, like, I really respect you talking about that on stage, because I've been, you know, this long sober or whatever, I'm really struggling, or I've thought, you know, I'm sober curious and thinking about stopping drinking. And that's where it really opens up the conversation. And I feel like when I started doing that, that's how I started kind of building community. And that's where I started being like, okay, well, I am doing this. I'm doing something right now. You know, when I started being vulnerable and I started talking about my sobriety and the stuff that I'm really going through, that's when you really connect with people. And that's why I like to write music, you know, that's like true to my life and my life experiences, because that's when people connect with like what you have to say. And so that's kind of where I started building community, is when I started talking about it on stage, and then I started posting about it, and I realized that it started helping people, you know?
Yeah, we've had a few artists, professional, musical theater, all sorts of stuff, and I ask them all the same question. How have you seen your art evolve? Because that industry can be very heavily alcohol and drug inducing.
Absolutely.
And, you know, at least our generation is one where it's like, oh, well, the reason that these artists created such wonderful music is because they were like tripping on acid, and they were like, you know, rolling on Molly and all these things, which is, you know, maybe, but I feel you can connect with your music and with yourself and your art so much more when you're sober. You create something that's so much more raw and authentic and real.
Yeah.
So even when you go back and listen to like music that you were making and writing and the things you were doing when you were drinking, like, what has been the biggest shift and change you've seen with the connection with your art? And like you said, how you connect with people who are coming to see your shows.
I mean, I just think anybody who's just like growing as a person, you know, what they're doing is going to naturally evolve. But it's just what you know, I'm pretty spiritual. I'm a very spiritual person, and I believe, you know, you get what you put out into the universe. And And I just feel like with my sobriety, that's when I started seeing doors opening, and not just, you know what I mean? Not just because of anything I did. I started seeing random doors opening that either I didn't see were cracked open because I was drunk, or they just weren't available. And because of my sobriety, that's when I started seeing, I started being able to do more things, like even just motivational speaking. Like, I don't think I started doing that till I was like a couple years sober already. And I never really thought to really do that. I always kind of wanted to, but then the door finally opened to do that. And everything else is just kind of, evolves with it, because I just write so heavily about what I'm going through or my life. So it was just new material to write about, new experiences. And as you guys know, a lot of feelings that you have to put up with that you didn't have to put up with while drinking, that you have to face, that I, didn't realize. And I feel like I had to learn everything over again. And I'm still trying to learn who I am. I'm still trying to learn why I tick the way I do. And that's just with everything, whether it was, drinking at a young age, or why my, love life was messed up. And it's just because everything that happened when I was younger, just affects you. And I feel like, you just grow as a person, and your stuff grows. And just like being a dad now, I was so fearful. I talked to my wife before we had a kid, and that was one of those things. It's just like, what am I really gonna do or have to write about when I have a kid? Because a lot of my stuff comes from dark places, or that's what I love to write about. That's where my passion comes from. And I was like, if I'm happy all the time, what am I gonna write about? And obviously, I've right now I'm working on a new album, and I'm just having so much fun writing new music. Kind of, I don't want to say like getting back to the basics, but it's the first time in a long time where I'm having so much fun just writing music and writing what I want to write, not what people expect of me, or I need to write a bunch of performance songs, So I feel like everything just kind of naturally evolves as long as you just trust the process and love the journey,
That's so true. And, we hear people say it a lot, and it sounds like such a fantasy whenever you're in the thick of your illness or whatever it is you're struggling with. But when you choose that clarity in yourself, because I'm a very spiritual person as well, doors really do open. And it's hard, but it's hard to communicate that to someone that's like, listen, I know I sound crazy. I know I sound like, a missionary or something, but it's like, take the spirituality out of it. I can't explain it then. When you start making the decisions, opportunities really do come to you. When
Absolutely.
you just start prioritizing those things, I don't know why. I know why, but there's no logic to how, like, those opportunities present themselves. So you're a brand new dad. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
How does that feel? How are you? Because your baby's itty bitty, right?
Makes me sleepy. Yeah, she's 16 months. And we had a lot of debate. Big shout out to my wife. My wife has been my videographer and photographer for like 9 years. So she's got to travel with me all over the country. She's got to do a lot of cool stuff. I've done 5 regional tours with Afro Man. So she's gotten to do like video for Afro Man, and I opened for Flo Rida here in my hometown. She got to do video for him. And that's just one of the things. Is just like, what, because we're logical people, and like I am, not just chasing dreams. Like everything we do here, like we try to make everything reality. And so we have to sit down logistically and be like, when we have a baby, what are we doing? What's the next step? And even leading up to it, or even like after my daughter was born, like I highly considered just not doing music anymore, just because I was so wrapped up in just how happy I am and just having a kid. I'm like, I'm done. Like I could just be a dad and that's it. You know what I mean? Like I've already done a lot of stuff that people can't say they've done, and I'm cool with that. But realistically, it was just like, talking to people and talking to other parents. They're just like, you need to just keep doing what you do, and that baby is going to have an amazing community around them. And just keep doing what you do. And so that's kind of what we've done. You know, she's 16 months. She's already flown with us to Texas. She's flown with us to Hawaii. You know, I've done shows and festivals, and she's just kind of along for the ride. And she absolutely loves music. She loves to be on stage. She loves to see me on stage. And so it's a balance between, you know, especially as a new parent for the first time, trying to figure out, you know, the rights and wrongs, and if what we're doing is right, you know what I mean? And just having, you know, just trying to make sure that we're the best parents that we can be within our own little chaotic world of, you know, traveling and chasing dreams.
Well, I tell all parents, new parents, the same thing. The best advice I can give you is don't take anyone else's advice.
I love that.
Because everybody has an opinion. And then you're like, wait, is this what I think? Or is this what everybody else is telling me to think? Throw away the books. If you're loving your kid, you're feeding them, you're taking care of them, they're good. And it sounds like you guys are doing a fantastic job. And
Thank you.
I mean, come on. She's going to have an amazing life. You know, I grew up doing musical theater.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I was on stage, right? I could have lived at that theater all of the time. It's a great life. Being surrounded with love and music is really awesome. I'm shocked that Ryan did not make a joke about Afro Man, because he said before this he was going to make a joke, because I've talked about this on previous podcasts, but Afro Man came and performed here in Knoxville 5 million years ago at a bar on the strip near ET campus when I was, you know, I was in my hoe phase, and I wore a little like white tube top and went to the very front and had him sign my boobs and jammed with him. So I don't know how long ago you toured, but if it was then, I'm sorry.
No, and
not that person anymore.
We mostly stayed in the Northwest with him. It was mostly just like regional runs with him. But yeah, it's crazy, and especially to bring, you know, a girlfriend at the time, you know, before she was my wife, along for that ride, you know what I mean? And there was a lot of boob signing, and that, you know, that's kind of what she stepped in, you know, and to have to, you know, deal with that, you know, I signed a lot of boobs. She filmed it. We sold a lot of merch. We sold merch for Afro Man. Gosh, so many stories. He's been such a wonderful guy. I, you know, not to drag on too long about this, but like I feel like I got started touring with him at just the right time, because that's when the cannabis industry started like blowing up, and his whole career has just regenerated itself. And so we did a lot of shows together, and a lot of funny stories, you know, just stuff, like, you know,
he was very nice and very respectful. I know that sounds like crazy, but like he was very sweet, very nice. Like I remember I didn't like take my top off or anything. I literally just had him like sign my shirt. Yeah. And he like gave me a hug and like called me sweetheart, and it was like non-threatening. Like you could tell, even when he's signing, he's like holding the pen, not touching me. Like it was a good time. It was not as scandalous as it sounds.
Yeah, I definitely admire really the guy. Fun. It looks better for social media and all of that more than anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
when it comes to stuff like that. But he is, you know, such a nice person, and that's what I admired about him. Because I, you know, tell my wife, I tell anybody, don't let me be a green room rapper. And what I mean by that is, you know, those artists that just hang out in the green room, they show up to perform and then they're out. And Afro Man was one of those people that he stayed behind and he met every single person after the show, regardless how late it took, regardless of how mad the venue got. He stuck around and took a picture with every single person before he left. That's cool. And he's forgotten some stuff, you know. There's one time I think we're out in Oregon, and of course we have our whole car full of my merchandise, so like we don't have room for anything. And he left his double neck guitar at the venue one night. He's just like, oh, you know, don't worry about it, just bring it to me to the next city or whatever. And I'm like, dude, I don't have room for it. So he's always just been a good sport, and a lot of laughs.
So I want to talk to you about something actually we talked about yesterday, which I found very interesting. We were just kind of talking back and forth, and randomly we were talking about how different this generation is coming up with alcohol. Yeah. And like Jess and I used to go to, you know, clubs and shit like that 10, 20 years ago, whatever it was. And you were making note of something that I really didn't think about, where you were saying, you know, now the club scenes are just completely different, if they even have them much anymore, where drinking's really gone by the wayside.
Yes.
That's wild.
It is wild, and especially as me, one of my jobs is, a bartender, and I've been, working in the bar industry since before I got sober, and big shout out to them. They've been super supportive of me and my sobriety, and my music. They've always supported my music. I remember I was on a pretty big tour, and one of my tours was going through Vegas. And one weekend, the owners, they shut down the whole bar, and they flew all the staff out to come to my show in Vegas without telling me.
Wow.
And they all showed up on a party bus, and which is super
fucking
cool,
cool.
super cool. But yeah, I mean, to get back to the original, topic, yeah, it's crazy how, people aren't dancing. This new generation, they're on their phone. They want to be in bed by 9 p.m. They're not out like dancing and stuff. And it's weird. A lot of bar business is taking a hit, but I mean, that's good for, the sobriety scene. But we're also talking about how, back when I was getting sober or whatever, there wasn't nearly half the products that there are nowadays, that's out there, like non-alcoholic products, which is super cool to see, and has allowed me to work with companies. Big shout out to Joyous. I'm sponsored by Joyous. I was an ambassador for Athletic Brewing Company for a little bit. But like, we didn't have all that, we had like O'Doul's, and that was it. O'Doul's or water, take your pick.
All I ever remember is O'Doul's, and then it was funny because as soon as I got sober, it's like Athletic was really starting to come on the scene, and we're both
ambassadors for Athletic too.
Nice.
Shout out to them. 20% off. Use my code
or use mine.
So that was another thing I was going to ask you about, because you're a bartender, and I'm sorry I didn't reference that.
No, you're good.
But how have you seen? I don't know how long you've been a bartender, but how have you seen that shift? I mean, you're seeing a lot more NA beers coming into the bar, more people ordering, or the mocktail scene. How's all that changed over the past few years for you?
It's a little different, especially being in a small town. So I feel like you haven't seen a whole lot of that much of a shift like it is in like bigger cities. But you do see like these products pop up, and I'm the one that's like, hey, we should probably start carrying this, or, we should try this. And it's really cool because they've even like recently came to me and asked me to like put together a mocktail program, for our bar. So it's really cool to see. And there's just definitely been just a huge shift, even just like festivals and concerts. And
that's what I was going to ask you about when you're out touring. Really, because I knew you were in a small town, but like when you go out to these bigger towns, the festivals, stuff like that, have you really seen a shift in that as well?
I have, and especially with, what Athletic is doing or Joyous, and it's giving, festivals and people an option. And I mean, I can't quote any statistics or whatever, but I know there's been a huge spike in non-alcoholic products when people are out at concerts, and which is cool, and even just around me in my personal life, since, I get, sent products all the time or stuff, then, people around me start trying it. And like, I feel like even family members would rather drink an Athletic instead of, having a hangover the next day or whatever, so it's kind of cool to see just in all aspects of my life, seeing just different, just different products that just weren't around. And, and on a different story, big shout out to, Kindred Spirits in Richland, Washington. They're an older couple, and it's kind of, another one of those stories of people, do stuff in their own ways. And they're an older couple that decided to get sober and to keep themselves kind of in check. Was they actually opened a non-alcoholic bottle shop, and now they're like they have the biggest selection of non-alcoholic products like in Eastern Washington. And so they've been sober for a handful of years, and they get a, kind of spread awareness and especially in the community, they even have like a tasting room where you can come in and try a whole bunch of different, like, non-alcoholic whiskeys and stuff like that. And so it's really cool to see.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of my favorite things to do these days, and here in Knoxville, Tennessee, it's definitely growing. Like, restaurants are starting to have like non-alcoholic, and it not just being like tea and soda or whatever. But when we go out to eat and there's a significant bar, I'll say, have your bartender make me something that is not just like a sugary juice.
Yeah.
And is not just club soda, but a mocktail. A true mocktail. And the whole point of it is not to like test the bartender. Like I never have negative feedback for the bartender because I also understand that not everyone is trained in these things. They don't always have the same like you know, NA liquors or syrups, and you know it depends on where you're going, whether you're like at an elevated restaurant and all of that stuff. As a bartender, you're limited. You're like, you know, I can't pull this out of my ass, okay?
Yeah.
But I just feel that by always asking, always prompting a bartender, a server, a manager, it just gets that conversation started. So like you as a bartender, I mean, I don't know if that's something good or bad, but just to be like, hey, like I want something that is not just like sugar and water or sparkling water. Get creative. Get creative with it. And most of them will like take
Come
the
up with something
challenge
pretty damn good.
and they'll bring it over and they'll say, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And then they'll come back like 5 minutes later and they're like, bartender wants to know, how is it? Do you like it? And I'll say, yeah. And I think a couple of times I feel like it's gotten that moving because especially where you have these restaurants or places where the bars are curated, like it is an art, right? It pushes you to be like, oh my gosh, like I get to make something that's so outside of the box. And I'm happy because I feel like when I started asking for that a year ago, a lot of it was, well, I mean, we have a couple mocktails right there. I don't know what to tell you. But now I get more of a, sure, we'll see what we can come up with. And again, I never give negative feedback. Like, even if I don't like the drink, that's not the point. You know what I mean? That's not the point. The point is just to be like, hey, we're out here. And that is something that we like and we see more and more of it. So I like to see that too.
For sure. I definitely think the demand is there. You know, there's a lot of people, it's not necessarily like a taboo thing or like, oh, you don't drink, what's wrong with you kind of thing. You know what I mean? So more people ask for it. And I love that, like as a bartender, for somebody to be like, hey, do you guys have anything non-alcoholic? And that's when I'm like, are you sober? You know, how long you been sober for? You know what I mean? And a lot of times I'll end up being like, hey, if you like this or like that, like I'll even be like, hey, you got to check out Kindred Spirits in Richland or whatever, you know, because it's like an hour and a half away from us. But you know what I mean? And that also builds the community because then you get a, you know, trying to get people to try different stuff that they might not have even known about, you know, like Joyous, like Athletic Brewing, because, you know, they make great beer, you know, great IPA beer that, you know, tastes like real beer. And so it's, I love that that's been like just a conversation starter that more people have been, you know, asking for it.
Yeah, we'll still go and sit up at the bar. And the cool thing is I've made a joke every once in a while and be like, listen, I'll sit here and buy like 20 drinks from you. You don't have to worry about over serving me. You just keep them coming, buddy. Keep them coming. And they're like, I like it.
Those overpriced things coming. Well, so you're getting ready to, actually, I shouldn't say you're getting ready to. You've already kind of dipped your toe into the acting business. So how's that been going? Because I'm sure that's one of the doors.
Yeah, tell us what you're allowed to tell us.
Oh, it's nerve-wracking. So this last year I booked my first gig. I kind of dabbled a little bit in projects that just didn't end up taking off, didn't do anything. And I've always just kind of wanted to act because I know it's a totally different world. But it is very interesting because, you know, for the longest time ever, you know, I've put together my own music videos. Like I edit footage and I do everything behind the scenes kind of stuff. And so it very much interests me as a creative, like when it comes to acting or how somebody shot something or, so I always wanted to act. And so I finally got booked for my first gig. Already filmed it. The movie's wrapped. It should be coming out next summer. It's called Incipient. And I play a cop. I play an officer. I don't know how much I'm supposed to say about it, but I'm excited. I saw the trailer for it. I know I didn't do the best acting in it, but maybe that's just, it's probably just me just, you know, being a perfectionist and just seeing myself and just like kind of cringy, you know what I mean? But I think people are going to love it. Then the same director just booked me for my first or my second film, which is going to be filmed next summer. I got to remember the name of it. Anyways, I don't even know if I'm supposed to release the name of it, but it's another, you know, kind of thriller, movie. And then just out of nowhere, the director reached out to me again. He's like, we have this movie that's already wrapped. is supposed to come out like this year or whatever, but we still need a scene for it. So I'm going to be filming that tomorrow. He just sent me like 10 pages of script like a day or two ago that I have to kind of memorize. And it's really hard. I feel like it's hard to be an artist, especially like a hip hop artist, to kind of transition into the acting world, because he's just like, well, here's 10 pages of dialogue, but we really don't need to like, it doesn't need to be said that way. Like, be natural about it, and however it comes out. And for me, like, I'm an artist, I'm a hip hop artist that I devote myself into memorizing all of my lyrics. So it's just like, if I'm not memorizing all of this, then what am I doing? I'm not, like, I have to memorize it. Like, that's just, the way stuff works in my world. Like, I have to know my stuff word for word. So that's been kind of a weird transition into, kind of just learning that to go with the flow. And I'm pretty used to being on camera, but yeah, doing dialogue and acting on camera has definitely been a huge change, a fun change though.
Yeah.
I hear you on that. He always makes fun of me and my daughter because he's like, you hear these songs like twice and then you know all the lyrics. And I'm like, well, I've been doing this like since I was like 4, right? Like I can hear these things. And it's not really that you memorize everything word for word. It's rhythmic, right? It's a rhyme, it's a song, it's a melody, it's a bop. And my daughter is the same way. Like, something that I have taught her, especially when you are trying to memorize like vocabulary words. Here's a little, like, I told you don't take anybody's advice, but this one's actually really good. Is I'll like create little raps to help her memorize her facts or her vocabulary words.
I love that.
And it makes it rhythmic, or little sayings. And so she'll do well. And when I was in high school, my junior year, it was something all juniors had to do. We had to memorize Chaucer lines from the Canterbury Tales, which is like, it's like Old English. It's not spoken anymore. And so it's like the hardest thing in the world. And I'm like, how in the fuck am I going to do this? And it was like a big portion of our grade. And you had to sit down with your teacher and you had to like recite these Chaucer lines, and it had to be exact word for word. She didn't care how you did it, but it had to be exact. And I created a rap, and I rapped my Chaucer lines to my English teacher, and she goes, I've never had someone rap Chaucer to me, but you got every word right. So
that's all that matters.
I love that.
And so, but it's true, right? So that you're right. That doesn't really translate over into being natural. It's like, what do you mean natural? Like, I need a playbook, I need a script, I need like this, and you tell me how to play it. You tell me the mask to put on, and I can do it. But it's like, oh, just be yourself.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It's tough.
That's not how this works.
Yeah. And that's where, it's definitely tough, because like I've had the director be like, I want you to play this character, but I want you to also be you. So find yourself within this character. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
You're like, no.
And just like this gig tomorrow, I'm like, okay, well, I'm like playing a dad, but like, what do you want me to do for wardrobe? Oh, just nothing too noisy. I'm like, I don't know what do I do for work? Like, I don't,
pictures.
Give
what
me
is
something,
your
man.
interpretation of noisy?
Yeah.
But I'm sure you'll do great. Like, just a little nugget. We don't watch our podcast episodes. As horrible as that sounds.
Because I'll critique myself the whole time, being like, "Oh my God, you sound terrible."
I'll read the description, you know what I mean, and I'll kind of buzz through it to make sure it sounds good. But I don't. I hate watching myself. I can't stand listening to myself. I'm like, oh my God, shut that bitch up. And so I just don't watch it. So I think that's normal. But I'm sure you are doing a
you'll kill it, bro.
fantastic job. And
Thank
so. I want to know a little more about your wife, because you talk so highly about her, and I know she's part of the creative process. Obviously, we appreciate that, because we do, we do all of our own editing and all that stuff too. So did you guys meet before you got sober, in sobriety? Is she so, like, what's the story there?
Yeah, we met when I was already sober, probably a couple years into it, 2 or 3 maybe. And we met because she was buying tickets to one of my shows here locally, and I just got out of a really bad relationship, and I think she did as well. And we met up at a coffee shop here, and she was meeting up to buy tickets to the show, and we ended up having coffee, and we ended up talking about this, that, and the other for like 3 hours, and it was just like it was very natural, and I could tell that she was you know, when you're in a hometown, you can tell when like there's some people that are meant to go out into the world, and then there's some people that are meant to just stay there for the rest of their lives and raise 18 kids. You know what I mean? And I could just tell that she was different, and she was going to college for photography, you know, and of course, you know, early into our relationship, I was just like, hey, have you thought about doing videography? Because I kind of need somebody to do my music videos, you know? And so it was cool to kind of see her learn we learned everything pretty much kind of together. Like I have already, you know, put music videos together before that and pieced my own stuff together. But to have somebody that, you know, has the eye for, you know, different stuff and just to put a different creative spin on stuff, it was really cool to see. Just her learning process transitioning from, you know, photography into video and not just that, but photography, like stage photography. Cause she, you know, hopefully I'm not like misquoting anything, but I would say she's probably more of a landscape photographer instead of like people, you know, like not necessarily like a people person wanting to take pictures of, you know, senior pictures, headshots, whatever, you know, that she rather be like in nature and, you know, that kind of stuff. So having her do my stage stuff, you know, and having to figure out, because I obviously move around a lot, she kind of fell in love with like taking pictures of me, you know, while performing. And, you know, that's been a big help for me because obviously every artist needs that, you know, unless they're paying for a photographer for every show, which is expensive. And that's, you know, one thing why we learn to do everything ourselves, you know, because, you know, it gets expensive and it's easier. Well, it's not easier, it's harder, but it's, you know, you save a lot of money when you learn to do stuff yourself. But yeah, to, you know, not getting off topic at all. But yeah, when we met, she's one of those people that can drink and not have a problem, you know, have a drink and she's good. And, you know, it's never interfered. And I don't think anybody's, you know, what anybody does hasn't really affected, you know, what I do or my sobriety. But she's obviously been absolutely supportive of, you know, my decisions and what I do.
That's awesome. You know, and unfortunately, we hear so many couples who, when one person gets sober and the other person moderates, because that was us for a while. Like, you know, even if I still continued to drink now, I really don't think it would affect our relationship at all.
No.
I think that our dynamic would be the exact same because I can moderate. It was just a personal decision. And, but unfortunately, we've seen so many people where it doesn't work out, and that always sucks, you know, when like one person. So I love hearing stories like yours because I think it gives a lot of people hope too, because it's like, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
Well, you just be yourselves and you love each other and it works out. So that's really awesome. And she travels with you. She sounds like a badass. No offense, Coaster, but
She's pretty cool.
I might like her just a smidge more than you. I might be a little biased.
Hey, that happens.
Well, before we get you out of here and you go on tour and with the detour of the acting job tomorrow.
I'm going to interrupt you. I don't mean to
Yes.
interrupt you. Where are you going on tour? Where
Yes.
can we find you? How do we get VIP tickets to come see you?
Well, for right now, I have a handful of shows in November, and then it kind of slows down during the winter, and I try to transition into more speaking events so I don't have to travel as much, especially in the snow up here. But let's see, I go on the Slap Frost tour starting next week. I will be in, let's see, where do I start? I start in the Dalles, Oregon. I go up to Seattle, hop over to Spokane, Washington, and then go down to Bend, Oregon. And then the next week I'm doing the Roots Experience Festival, which highlights people of color and indigenous roots, which is going to be at the Spokane Library. I believe that's the 15th. And then I'm doing a show, 10th annual Black Light Party out in Ellensburg, Washington with my people, Black Grenade Entertainment. Big shout out. They've had me out there a few times for their events. Let's see, where else am I going? Yeah, we're just kind of winding down the year, but you can find all my stuff on Spotify, linktree.com/coaster509. You can find all my social media and, you know, all my music on streaming platforms.
That's
Hell
awesome.
yeah.
How do you get tickets to your show?
I guess it just depends. A lot of times I have links. It just depends if I'm working with, bigger agencies. A couple years ago, I started working with a booking agency out of LA, and I'm really starting to build a solid relationship with them. There's talks about possibly putting me on my first nationwide tour as a co-headliner with somebody bigger. So in instances like that, like I will have my own ticket link to get tickets. But a lot of the shows you kind of have to go through like the hometown promotion. Which I can help, you know, guide people to the right people to get tickets.
That's
Sweet.
amazing. Well, if you go, I mean, I would love to fly out to Washington, but if you go on a nationwide tour,
We're
will be
in.
there.
Yeah,
And I will
I would
have a
love.
sign up saying, "You know me. Don't
You
act
know
like
me."
you don't fucking know me."
I would
That's
definitely
amazing.
love to meet you guys, and I'd love to come out there.
Yes.
That's
Absolutely.
Yes.
a lot of my touring has been like mostly this side of the country, and you know, besides flying out to Salem, Massachusetts, you know, we did a music video over there. But besides that, I haven't traveled too far east, so I'd be really excited if I actually got the opportunity to go.
That's
Yeah, we'd
awesome.
love
And
it. That'd
then
be
I
great.
know you probably said it earlier, but before you have your ending, when do your movies come out? I know you probably can't say the titles, but when can we see you acting?
I don't know if we have any for sure dates. I know Incipient is supposed to come out next summer, and I know that's going to be on some streaming services. Don't quote me, but I think for sure it should be on Tubi. But yeah, next summer for sure. I think Incipient's coming out. I already saw the trailer to it. The trailer's awesome, and I'll let you guys know when the trailer actually officially drops, so you guys can watch
Yeah,
it.
we'll share
We'll
It's
put
really
it on
cool.
our website.
A lot of
be awesome.
talented people. Big shout out to everybody that was a part of that project. It's cool to get into different stuff like acting or working with like comedians, because it's like everything's so different, but the people are so like connected right away because it's just the whole creative process and creative side of things. So you really feel like you're building community and family, even though it's kind of out of my world a little bit, out of the music world. But yeah, for sure, next summer something should be out.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Well, before we let you go on tour and do your acting job tomorrow, we always ask all of our guests a question at the end. Now, with you, you did get sober very early, so I know you don't have a big time frame here, but do you have an old funny, old drunken story, or it could be even be a
Oh, God.
friend, some kind of funny ass story? If it involves somebody pissing, it's even better.
Oh man.
So many.
Yeah, did a lot of early drinking. Man, see the problem is like I have so many experiences like traveling and stuff. I absolutely block out a lot of the earlier memories, and I don't remember until somebody like brings it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, we did do that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did do that, didn't we?
We've
know,
had
but-
stories just to kind of maybe spark your memory. We've had stories of people pissing in the middle of the street. We've had stories of someone
Hell, Peter pissed on
climbing,
stage performing.
Pissing on stage performing. That's one. We have had where someone was on like a multi-million-dollar yacht with like some designer bag and a martini, and she's climbing up a ladder and dumps her drink on the person underneath her. We had
no.
another one where the girl got invited to some celebrity something after party and fell asleep in the limo and totally missed the entire
no.
experience. You know, all
That's
sorts of
Fun
things.
stuff like that.
Oh man, I don't know if I've done anything like too crazy besides, you know, being stranded in the woods or stealing traffic cones.
What's stranded
Stealing
in the
traffic
woods?
cones.
Wait, we want to hear two different stories
I
now.
don't
I
know.
want to
I
know
was-
how you got stranded in the woods.
I was just with a homie, you know, out here in Washington, you know, people just go like we'll go up to the lake, you know, high schoolers or whatever, and everybody will drink. And I don't know. I think he had some fight with some chick, and her ex or something show up. So he's just like, I'm out of here. And I'm just like, well, I'm not gonna just let him just walk back to town, which is, you know, however many hours back to town by himself. So we ended up in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know how his mom found us, but she was one of those parents that like, hey, you know, you guys are out doing whatever, but like if you're ever in trouble, you know, call me and I'll be there. And I remember she randomly found us in the middle of nowhere. Thankfully,
I was gonna say, thank God in the
yeah.
woods.
How
And like
old
I
were
was
you guys?
Oh, we were in high school, so we were probably like 17 or something. But like even I remember my dad would go out of town, and I threw a couple huge parties at, my dad's house. And one of the kids threw a table in our pool. I don't think I did get caught. The second big party I had, I got caught because, my dad was out of town, and my friend who I was stranded in the woods with, for that other experience, I think he said something to the wrong person or about some girl or something, and he ended up getting jumped in my kitchen. And he got his arm broke. And so like he had to go to the hospital. So like his mom ended up calling my dad. Like, she didn't necessarily give me away on purpose. But yeah, I got caught because he got his arm broke at my house.
This friend sounds like a winner.
Don't talk shit.
Right. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. But that was just like normal parties though. Like our parties were always crazy fights, and that was definitely high school. It was after like a Friday night football game. Everybody came out, and we had a pool, and God, I think I still have pictures like on my MySpace of like those parties. On MySpace. I wasn't, and it was one of those things that like, it was just super cool for me because I, being from a small town, I wasn't really the most popular person, especially trying to be a rapper and, this, that, and the other. So those were like cool experiences for me, just to kind of look back on. Not at the time, I got in a lot of trouble. My dad was, pretty stern growing up. So it was pretty bad.
Well, now I got to hear about the traffic cones.
Oh, the traffic cone. I mean, it's just one of those things. You're driving and you see a traffic cone and you just pick it up.
The back.
And when I was in another time, I got in trouble when my dad was out of town. I was drinking. I was pretty young. I was probably like 12 or something. I ended up lighting a tumbleweed on fire. And it was like right by my grandma's house. My grandma lived right across the road from me. And all in all, I ended up burning down 21 arborvitae trees that kind of separated like her house from the road, which is really scary because it's right by like a huge propane tank. And I got in a bunch of trouble for that.
Holy shit.
But like I had like an ice chest that was dug in a hole and underground. So like nobody like found my stash. So like nobody knew it was this, that, or the other, and I ended up going back and recovering it like after everything had happened. But like all three of us kids got in trouble, like the neighbor kids that I was hanging out with, and it was bad. I had to go to like the fire department and like take a class, and so my family still doesn't let me live that one down.
They're like, don't burn anything down, okay?
Yeah.
Relax.
So like
everybody relax.
There's a lot of tree jokes, you know what I mean? And then,
sure.
of course, drinking and driving, I, crash head on into a tree, and I, still get laughed at from the family a little bit.
Well, we asked that question at the end because recovery and sobriety can be very, very heavy, and we have a lot of guilt. And at the end of the day, you have to be able to laugh at yourself because we're all just people out here trying to survive.
Yeah.
And we're glad that you're here.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
we appreciate you being on the podcast. This is amazing. I can't wait to listen to your music. I can't wait to see your movies. And you'll have to check back in when you get back from tour and tell your wife and your little baby that we say, hey.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on. Big shout out to you guys for what you guys do. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm just a person out here trying to get my art into the world, but you guys create that platform for people like me. So thank you guys.
Well, we appreciate you,
so
Coaster.
much.
Thanks so much for coming on, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
All right,
You too. Bye.
If you love the podcast, which I know you do, please like, subscribe,
and hit that notification bell to get notified every time we post.
That's right. Dropping them, baby. Word.